Hi, everybody. This is Isaac from the future here. I do want to open this episode with an apology. There is going to be no video that accompanies this week. Unfortunately, we had some technical difficulties, and the video files ended up getting corrupt and lost. So therefore, we did end up cutting the preview for COTA, but we do plan on having Tyler run at COTA on iRacing for this upcoming episode. That way you'll still get to see what COTA looks like on iRacing, even though it's not 100% accurate. We'll still give you what our thoughts are, and we'll have Tyler show you what his thoughts are on the track as well. But again, we do apologize, but the rest of the episode will be right behind this, and hopefully you guys enjoy. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Infield Report. My name is Isaac, alongside my older brother Tyler.
How's it going?
We are several days removed from Atlanta now, and we're recording this on a Wednesday, so we've had a couple of days now to think about the racing and kind of digest it a little bit more. I don't know about you, Tyler, but I know, and I've noticed this throughout the course of the last year now, or I guess year over year now, that the racing has gotten better. The quality of the racing has gotten better.
It's the handling and such that we want to see at Talladega, Daytona. Get the handling back into it, where instead of just riding around and having the tires, maybe eventually wear off. This gives the drivers a chance to, handle the car again, push it, maybe not rely on the fuel anymore. That way the tires are in play and they're not riding around like, the cyclist in Tour de France.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those things, too, where it also brings pure driver's skill into things as well. It's not, like you said, just riding around saving fuel or whatever, but it's skill, plus you also get the 2-tire call versus 4-tire call. That actually means a lot more now versus what it used to mean, or what it still does mean at like Talladega and Daytona, where we saw it 2 weeks ago now, where it didn't matter much. You could put on 2 tires, but most of the time you would just put on 4 and call it a day. Or you would just go fuel only and you wouldn't need any tires. But you're right, the wearing of this track, the weathering, it has caused better product of racing. And we saw that starting in the Truck Series race on Saturday afternoon. And it was one of the races where I feel like at the beginning it kind of got boring. Just because, I'll just put it out there. Kyle Busch won the race. It's Atlanta. He's won 8 races in the trucks. He's won, I think, 4 out of the last 5 or something crazy like that. But Atlanta is his type of track for some reason. It's just the way it is. He's led 80 out of the 135 laps that were run. And it was a race where you had great racing in the middle of the pack for positions. For the lead, maybe not so much throughout the course of the race. And I think a lot of the drivers were sort of trying to actually get to the end of the race and not just try to gain positions on, we'll say, lap 32, where it doesn't matter as much. But a lot of those guys were actually trying to survive, which was good to see. But you had Jack Wood in the 91 truck. I know we talked about him last week. He actually got his first career stage win. I really, really did like to, I would like to see him continue to do well. I know it's a fairly decent-sized team, but I want to see him do well in particular to improve himself and just show that he's got more skill and he can get the attention that he deserves, I feel like. It was kind of a mathematical thing too, I know, with the 3-wide finish at Atlanta last year between Kyle Busch, Ryan Blaney, and Daniel Suarez in the Cup Series. First to third was separated by 7 1,000ths of a second. Busch drove the number 7 truck. It's the truck number it is, but he ended up winning in that number 7 truck, so getting some sort of, I'll call it redemption. Quote unquote redemption. Yeah, you're right. I don't know that that's redemption in any way, but it kind of sweetens it a little bit. And Busch did end up winning by 17 1,000ths of a second. So another close finish, but he was actually on the right side of it this time. So if you want to call it revenge, or if you want to have some sort of closure, great. But I know the Truck Series win was not necessarily at the top of his list, but it definitely got him going in the right direction for the weekend, I feel like. But he beat out Stuart Friesen in the 52 truck. Great race for Friesen as well. He had a little bit of a rough start, but once things got going, he was able to find his way through the pack, and he ended up finishing pretty well in second. Is pretty well. That's the best you can get without winning, but it was a pretty good day for him. Grant Enfinger actually ended up scoring the most stage points all weekend. Actually, I should say points in general. He scored the most race points in general. He had 44 points. He was second in stage 1 and third in stage 2, and then he got that 10th place overall finish to finish the race. I know that's good momentum for that team moving forward. So great to see Enfinger doing well again. He was a Championship 4 driver last year, and I know a lot of eyes are on him again. Maybe becoming a champion this year, or maybe just making it to that Championship 4 again. We'll see. I've always enjoyed watching him. He's just a likable guy from Alabama, just one of those guys. We did get an update on the penalty situation with Parker Kligerman and that 75 truck from Daytona. We did find out NASCAR upheld the penalty, so Corey Heim gets the win. Unfortunately, that DQ'd Parker Kligerman. I know him and the team elaborated on it. They said it was a miscommunication between NASCAR, a NASCAR official, and the whole pre-race and post-race inspection process, but I think that's just unfortunately the way that those inspections go. And I don't know what to say other than I feel bad for Parker because he still deserves a win. I know the team, the team feels like they still deserve the win. I think they're still proud of the effort that they put out there, and they should be. It's just one of those situations where, unfortunately, whether it's a circumstantial miscommunication or whatever the case may be, unfortunately those penalties have to be handed down and the DQ had to be upheld. And then for those of you that are wanting to keep track of the Xfinity fastest lap, we had Tanner Gray in the 15 truck. He ended up getting that bonus point from Xfinity for the fastest lap. So that's one that you can keep in your tracker book if you want to. So we did have some interesting and fun racing in the truck series, but we also had some fun racing and very, we'll call it maybe a little bit dominant, if you will, racing in the Xfinity series. We had Austin Hill just obliterating all sorts of records this weekend. He, obviously, because I'm mentioning him, did end up winning the race. He tied Dale Sr. and Tony Stewart with 8 drafting style track wins in the Xfinity series. I'll make sure to put that in there. In the Xfinity series, he's got eight wins at drafting style tracks. Now, those do not count, obviously those 8 wins don't include if Dale Sr. and Tony Stewart and all the other drivers won at Atlanta, because at the time it was not a drafting style track. So there may or may not be an asterisk on this for now, but NASCAR deems it as a drafting style track win. We will as well. So we'll respect that. And it's at Atlanta for Austin Hill. It's his hometown track. He's dominated there. It's one of those tracks where, again, it's his style. He's aggressive. He knows how to lead the lines. He knows how to race at those style of tracks. Whether you love him or hate him, you got to give him credit. He knows how to run it well. He also obliterated the record for most laps led on drafting style tracks. Again, this doesn't include those drivers that raced at Atlanta pre-reconfiguration, but he now has 734 laps led on those style tracks. Dale Jr. is second with 691. I don't envision that number going up unless he decides Austin Hill took my record. I'm going to jump in a car. It's plausible, but I don't see it happening. He also set some personal records as well. He ended up leading 146 laps out of the entire race, which was 163 laps. That was the most for him in a single race. And then he raced all of the laps in the top 4. And out of those laps, 155 of the 163, he ran in the top 2. He had a really, really dominant car. There's no getting around that. And there's something about RCR and those cars at drafting style tracks. They're the cars to beat. I mean, there's no getting around that. Austin Hill won both stages, and he won the race. And he put his sponsor in victory lane, too. I almost forgot about that. So that's always a plus. That's like when Joey goes out to Vegas and runs the Pennzoil car and puts the Pennzoil car in victory lane. It's not very common, but it does happen. And it is really cool to see those guys getting their sponsor in victory lane at their track that they sponsor. So that's always fun. For those of you that are keeping tabs with the Xfinity Fastest Lap, again, in the Xfinity Series, we had Christian Eckes in the 16. He picked up the bonus point with that Xfinity Fastest Lap, so that gave him an extra point on the day. So it was good for him. It's also good for this, in my opinion. I think this Xfinity Fastest Lap is a pretty good thing because we all know how close those sorts of the end of season standings can get. It may not be for first place like we saw in the Cup Series last year with Larson and Reddick, but you can have those instances where you may be 1 or 2 points apart, or maybe just a handful of points apart, and it could be the difference between 5th and 6th, or it could be between making it in the playoffs and not making it in the playoffs. But either way, regardless, I think it's pretty interesting because the payout is different for whatever position you finish in the final standings. So it does help out those smaller teams. If you end up getting several of these, it does add up over the course of time, but it can also boost you up a spot or 2 in the final standings and put a little extra money in the pockets of the team, whether it be a small team, big team, whatever. It puts a little extra money over there. So that's how I see it. But so it's a good thing in my opinion for right now. We had a difficult situation for the ending of the Xfinity race. There was a last lap wreck that happened, and at least myself anyway, most of us believed that we were going to get a caution on that last lap. The wreck occurred not long after the cars came out of turn 2, so the presumption was that NASCAR was going to throw the caution, and then it would be one of those whoever was leading at the time would have won the race. But instead, they decided to let it go green. They raced back to the start-finish line, and that was that. Well, there were replays that were shown later. You have to dig for it, but there was a replay that showed that there were cars driving full speed or close to full speed going through the wreck, and that was a safety issue. But NASCAR, as we saw at Daytona last week, they were inconsistent with how they threw the caution, and that irked a lot of people the wrong way. So that happened. They raced back to the start-finish line this week, and people still weren't happy about it. What were your thoughts on the finish, Tyler?
Like I said, there needs to be like a third party, or paint a line at the either middle of the backstretch or right out of turn 4. If they don't make it to that line, a caution is thrown, race is over. Like I said, it's a safety issue that needs to be addressed. Yes, we want green flag finishes. Yes, we want them to somewhat race back to the line. But If it's this halfway down the backstretch thing and they're spinning and wrecking there, just throw it. Yeah, sure, we're going to be pissed at sort of the yellow finish, finish under yellow, but at least it's consistent.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people were in the camp of, well, we don't want to finish under yellow because the finish under yellow sucks. And it's like, yes, I get that, but the safety aspect of it, you have to realize racing through all that carnage, you never know what can happen. So you have to throw the caution. But I think NASCAR they saw what had happened last week at Daytona, and they said, let's be a little bit more reserved with how we throw it this time. And then we'll go from there. But then the next morning, on Sunday morning, they put out a statement that basically said that they were wrong, that if something like that were to happen again for the Cup race, they would throw the caution. So they put out a statement, and they wanted to make sure that everybody knew that they were going to throw the caution if it happened in that same circumstance. But yes, we did have NASCAR put out a statement. They said that if there was a similar incident to what happened with the Xfinity race, where they were wrecking on the backstretch, they would throw the caution. They sort of said that they were wrong, but not straight up, because I don't think they ever will say that. But they just wanted it clear that if that were to happen again, and I believe they cited safety in that regard, they said that they would throw the caution if that happens again in a similar situation.
I'm kind of glad that they came back and says, yeah, we were wrong. They should have probably put in there, we were stupid, but I don't get.
Yeah, I don't know that they're ever going to put that out there, but it would be nice to basically say, hey, we were wrong, wave the hand and say, hey, that was our bad. We need to do a little better. I mean, I know that no officiating group or no sanctioning body, whatever, is ever going to come out and say that they were wrong on how they officiated something, but you have to take a little bit of accountability, which I feel like they did, just a little bit. Not 100%, but they clarified things to make sure if this incident were to happen again, everybody knows how they were going to stand on it. Regardless of whether the finish was controversial for safety reasons or whatnot, I still think it was a good race on Saturday. It was also a good race on Sunday, too, for the Cup Series. And there was no real, I'll call it stupid moment or whatever. We had entertaining racing. It was very reminiscent of the way that the super speedway races used to be run. I'll say back in the late 90s, early 2000s, it was one of those style races where there was a lot of entertainment, whether it was in the front of the pack, back of the pack, middle of the pack. You had a lot of good racing. We also had an MVP driver, or we'll call him, I don't know what to call him yet, but the you're not out till you're out driver of the week was Michael McDowell. That boy was 6 laps down at one point, and because of the way that the cautions fell and everything, and the way that he stayed as the lead car, or the first car a lap down or several laps down or whatever, he ended up getting back on the lead lap and finished a respectable 13th.
Your definition of it's not over until it's over.
It ain't over till whatever you want to say. I mean, there are several sayings. I'm not going to say one of them, but you can't rule the guy out. And Michael McDowell has always been a really good super speedway racer. He had a power steering issue super early on in the race. They ended up having to replace the power steering pump, and that took several laps, but he ended up getting back out on track and was able to salvage, I won't even say salvage, I'll say somehow get himself a 13th place finish. He is definitely the MVP driver of the week, hands down. Going 6 laps down, he actually tied the record for most consecutive free passes given in a race. He tied, I believe it was Jamie McMurray from Talladega in 2014, I believe is when it was. I want to say he had, I think it was 6 consecutive. I mean, you just have to go out there and give it your all every week, and I think he definitely deserves the "it's not over till it's over" award, I think is what I'm going to call it for right now.
You could call it the "Not Left Until I See God" or the Checker Flag Award.
There we go. That's a good name for it too. That actually does work. I mean, it was really cool because in the back of my mind, I'm going, okay, watching him race at the back of the pack. I mean, obviously, he's just running laps at that point, but he was going and running, basically just running around the back and seeing if he could do anything and keep yourself in it. And I know that that's not, most of the teams will just tell you, hey, go out there and just run laps and finish the race. And that goes to show that all you have to do is just go out there and drive the car, and as long as you don't wreck it or get wrecked, anything can happen. You can salvage a finish. You can be top 15 at the end of the day if things fall your way. You know, I was really thinking, because he used to drive for Ford. He was a Ford driver for years, and I was thinking that the Fords were going to dominate, just like everybody else. They qualified super well. I believe it was 10 of the top 11 or 11 of the top 12 qualifying were Fords, and then you had Kyle Busch in there in 8th, I believe it was, or 6th, or somewhere in there in the top 10. But everybody else up front was Fords. They were running well all day. It was a Ford type of day until it was not. You had Josh Berry in the Wood Brothers car. He won stage 1, so Ford won the first stage. They ran really well throughout stage 2. Unfortunately, I think for the Ford camp, Kyle Larson got the stage 2 win, but neither of those manufacturers got the win. A Toyota that led 1 lap, the very last lap, got the win, and that was Christopher Bell.
That's the only one.
They say, I was going to say that. They say you only need one, or the most important lap is the last lap, and he was the only one that was not either. I mean, obviously there's only 3 manufacturers, but the fact that it took until the very last lap for Toyota to lead a lap, and then he won the race at that, which was impressive. There was a lot of aggressive racing going on late in the race, and McDowell's teammate Carson Hocevar was, I'll say, the culprit or the reason.
Star of the show.
We can call him a star of the show, I think. He was running pretty well. I know it was not an ideal start for him. He started back in 26th, so kind of the danger spot in the pack for these super speedway type races. But he had a really quick car. He was able to move around a lot of guys, and he was able to drive up through the field fairly quickly. But once he got to Kyle Busch, and I know Kyle Busch has been talked about a lot today, but when Hocevar was racing Kyle, I know Kyle was not too happy with him, and there's a radioactive moment. There's a radio moment where he is a little fiery and basically says he's going to wreck Hocevar if he gets up there, because I think Hocevar was racing him a little harder than what he should have that early in the race. I believe it was in stage 1 is when that happened, or towards the end of stage 1. But unfortunately for Hocevar, that was not the only one he rubbed the wrong way. I know he, late in the run, he got Chastain a little upset. He got Blaney a little upset. So, I mean, some drivers he rubbed the wrong way, but, you know, when you're, what is he, 22? He's a younger guy. You just have to learn, unfortunately. It takes these types of races to where, you know, he didn't wreck anybody, which is good for him, but I think knowing when to push and how hard to race guys and things like that. Like, I know, you know, you've got guys that are not going to be too happy that you raced them hard, but during the post-race stuff, I saw Blaney went up to Hocevar, and there was nothing aggressive, nothing, you know, super harsh towards him. I think it was just more of a, hey, you know, you raced well, just kind of watch how you race guys next time type thing. I know Chastain said that he didn't get the answer that he wanted from Hocevar after the race, but Chastain is a mentor to him. So I think they'll they'll get it figured out, and they're Chevy teammates, so they probably would have had a talk about it early this week, and they're probably okay now. But like I said, the Busch incident, the way that it happened earlier in the race, I can kind of see where Busch got rubbed the wrong way there. But, at the end of the race, like, you've got to do what you got to do to win or to try to win. I mean, what would you do for a win?
I wouldn't be aggressive that early, but you need position early. That way, when you come into pits and with this stage racing, it does promote, the last 10 laps of racing of a race in the first 10. Yes, that's great to see, but it's beating and banging in bumper cars almost every single lap or towards the end of the stage. That's where you get most of your wrecks and most people getting punched. But going back to the Chastain incident, I didn't see it. At least I didn't catch it live. I saw them on camera after the race, but they looked a little bit civil. But like you said, Chastain said he didn't get the answer he wanted. I'm surprised Kyle Busch didn't come over and say something. But the one with the Blaney one, credit was 100% his fault. I think Blaney was a little squirrely, and that's what caused the spin. So them being civil after the race was, I'm going to call that valid.
Yeah, and I think, like I said, I don't personally see anything wrong with what Hocevar did. I think, yes, he's been aggressive throughout his career, and it's rubbed a lot of drivers the wrong way. But, like you said about the whole stage racing, like, it manufactures a lot of this hard racing towards the end of the stages, but you also have to realize you've got to stay alive to at least contend for the win. So, I mean, you've got to be aggressive to a point, but I think that Chastain and Hocevar and Blaney and Busch, I think they'll all be okay. But I would kind of keep an eye out on Busch and Hocevar this upcoming week just to see. I mean, I know road racing is not really either of their forte, so I would just kind of keep an eye on them if they race near each other. Just see if there's some extra pushing going into a corner, or if there's any sort of, door-to-door action. I don't realistically see anything like that happening, but if they do end up around each other, just keep an eye on the two, on the number 8 and 77 cars. Anything is possible with them. But again, we had, like we were talking about earlier, we had another ending to a race that some people say NASCAR cost us another 3-wide finish potentially, with Bell and Larson and Hocevar. I think NASCAR did rule it the right way. They did throw the caution correctly this time. I just wish that there was some form of consistency, and I think it shouldn't have taken 2 weeks and about 16,000 incidents. Hopefully they can continue to rule this consistently. And for all of you that are keeping track of the Xfinity Fastest Lap driver, this was another Kaulig driver. It was also the 16 car, just in the Cup Series. AJ Allmendinger had the fastest lap this week. So that's an extra bonus point for him that will hopefully, maybe down the line, make a bit of a difference for him. Again, I do want to apologize for this being an audio-only episode this week. However, this upcoming week, we should be back to our regular format with video, iRacing footage, all that good stuff. So if you do want to see that, please leave a like, comment, subscribe, all the good stuff. If you want to follow race day updates as well, please follow over at Infield Report on Twitter. That is where I update on race day updates. And I'm also trying to update on Instagram as well, even though I don't post much over there. But please give both a follow, and we'll see you guys next time.